A big sacrifice.
Yeah, we appreciate your sacrifice. Yeah, we had a lot
Did you
of
have the recording going for the meeting? Just so everybody's aware?
Sorry.
No, you're good. It just began. So just wanted to let everybody know. Okay, so Chair, I think whenever you would like to start, we can get started.
It's 10:30.
Okay, that is something, yeah.
January 21st, 2025, meeting of the Palm Springs Sustainability Commission is called to order. Director McCoy, would you please take the roll call?
All that extra time, you'd think I'd be ready with the thing. No, it's not. I just never want to miss anybody. We have regrets from Commissioner Alexander for this evening's meeting. Commissioner Barrett,
Present.
Commissioner Boyd, present, Chair Clark,
Present.
Commissioner Cohen.
present.
We have regrets from Commissioner Dearda for the meeting. Commissioner Forster is not currently present. Commissioner Frick.
Here.
Vice Chair Rotner.
Present.
And Commissioner Walker has let us know she is on her way.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody to the meeting this evening. We have visitors here and welcome also to the visitors online. Happy New Year to everybody. This is our first meeting of 2025 of the Commission. The next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the agenda. The agenda package was distributed last Thursday, January 16th. Is there any discussion about the agenda? There's none, except that I would like to add the year 2024 appears too many times in this agenda. It will be fixed in the February agenda. Since there are no other comments about the agenda has been accepted. Now we'll move on to public comments. This time is for members of the public to address the Commission on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. The Commission values your comments, but it cannot take action on items not listed on the posted agenda. 3 minutes are allowed for each speaker. First, do we have anybody present who would like to make comment online or here? None. And we do have a written comment that Director McCoy will read.
Yes, so I apologize for not having this sent out. We got it a little bit later in the day to include in the package. And of course, naturally, it has disappeared from my screen. So just give me a second to pull it back up really quickly. And I will read that into the record and also make sure it's published on Laserfiche in our public comments folder for result by the Commission later on. Just give me a moment. Sorry, you get to look at my email. Lucky everyone. No. Just like, hey, sorry, I missed this 2 weeks ago while I was overseas. Okay. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and read this into the record quickly. So this is from David Powell, Palm Springs resident. I am writing in support of the smoking ordinance, including restrictions on smoking near entrances to buildings and in any area where employees are required to serve customers. As a person with ongoing respiratory issues, I'm impacted severely by secondhand smoke. This forces me to avoid the outdoor areas of bars and arenas even when the weather is beautiful. All it takes is a few smokers to ruin the air quality of outdoor areas and make them unhealthy for others who want to enjoy the space. Additionally, even when inside, there are either openings allowing smoke-filled air to blow inside, or poorly sealed and or frequently opened doors that let smoke inside. Employees and other patrons should not be subjected to secondhand smoke as it is known to be harmful. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to hearing updates on the progress of this initiative. This is from David Powell.
Thank you. And if there are no other public comments, we will move on. There's no presentation this evening. And so the next item is Chair's comments. And I have a couple of things that I wanted to bring up. At the January 9th City Council meeting, there was a discussion about implementing a moratorium on new drive-throughs in the city during the period that the zoning code is being revised, which is about a 2-year process. The council did not pass the moratorium, but they agreed to delay approval of projects with drive-throughs for 3 to 4 months to allow for discussion of impacts and potential regulations. So we'll hear more about that proposal, particularly the specific one that came up a month or two ago in the coming months. Last Wednesday, January 15th, there was a Blue Zones meeting. It was very well attended. I believe all commissions were invited, and there were several from this commission there. Former Mayor and Council Member Jeff Kors is the Executive Director of Blue Zones for Palm Springs. He's currently in the process of hiring staff, and in the next 4 to 5 months, a detailed plan for implementing Blue Zones will be developed and rolled out to the city. And then I'd like to point out that for the city council meeting this Thursday, January 23rd, there are 2 items that should be of interest to members of the commission. The first one is a public hearing, item 2A. It is going to be an appeal of the Planning Commission's December 4th decision to certify the final environmental impact report regarding the warehouse or fulfillment center that is planned for north of the 10 freeway at 19th Street and Indian Canyon. That discussion will be held Thursday, and that's something that we did have interest in. In fact, I made a public comment at the time to the Planning Commission when they approved the EIR. The second item is something that we've heard about in the past and will be coming up again this Thursday as item 3B, and it's going to be approval of the airport master plan conceptual development. And we've gotten a lot of information in the commission meetings and in public meetings about the airport development in the past, and a lot has actually happened. But one big change which they're going to be discussing, and there is the presentation that will be part of the meeting, is in the staff report. But one thing that they're going to be discussing is the change in the development plan for the rental car terminal. It was originally planned to be 5 stories tall, maybe 3 of them above ground, 2 below ground, and that would have been north of the current terminal, basically where the rental car area is right now. Well, what's happened is there's an alternate proposal which they're going to discuss, and that is to have a 3-story facility in that same location. 2 of the stories will be below ground, only 1 will be above ground, but there won't be as many parking spaces for rental cars and visitors or travelers as there were in the original plan. And the thought was that they would phase in additional parking as the need became apparent, and not do it right up front. And this apparently came about through discussions in several different public meetings about the airport. So I think that's something that's of significance to sustainability, since we're concerned about cars and traffic and parking and so forth. So that's something that you may want to watch also. In the council meetings, you can always attend in person or watch live on the television channel. YouTube is it? That while it's going on, or watch the next day the video. So I would encourage you all to take a look at those particular items that have an impact to us. And that's all that I have on chair's comments. Are there any questions or comments? Then next we move to subcommittee reports. And the first is the Standing Subcommittee on Waste Reduction. Vice Chair Rotner.
Thank you. We had a pretty quick meeting. Our representative from PSDS is back. Liz is back in person, and it was great to see her, and we're happy to see her back. Coordinator Villa reported on the shredding event that we had. It sounded like it was successful, but a smaller amount of people. And he's coordinating on dates for the next event. I believe I saw something come across in my email, but I didn't open it. So I think it's coming up soon. Is it? Is in April? April,
Our
okay, sorry.
program coordinator is on vocal rest.
Yeah.
For this meeting, so I'm going to be granted.
Sorry.
April 5th.
Sorry, I did see that. So that's more to come on that. Hopefully next meeting you'll have it back. Also, community cleanups. The first cleanup is on January 25th. I know Coordinator Villa was looking for additional folks to volunteer. And that will be held at James O. Jesse Park. And I know information has been sent out via the social media avenues. And then Earth Day events, which are ongoing, and Coordinator Villa said more to come on that. Liz with PSDS did talk about the ongoing efforts with composting, kind of the same, more of the same, working with businesses and their ongoing challenges, HOAs and apartments looking at trying to improve communications and sharing that. They are planning, one of the highlights in the conversation was a waste audit. I believe it's on the west side of the city. Let's see. It's coming up, but they do send out notices to the neighborhoods that they're doing it, and then they'll share the results. And we did ask if we could share that data with the team. She did mention that Palm Springs is in compliance with the state mandates, and we're continually increasing diversion rates, so that's a good thing. And kind of talked about with maybe getting a shout out to our success. I know there's a lot of kind of working, but sharing that data and then maybe doing a blast, sharing that information with city council and to our community members to say, hey, let's keep this up, let's do it, we're doing a good job. And then one last thing is there was some discussion about the 1 PS picnic that's coming up and how to promote diversion rates at large events. I think the next meeting, I'd like to kind of expand on that, on how we can continue to grow on that, because I think we're doing a lot of good work. It's just how do we keep moving to our larger events. You can read all the other little details in the report.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Vice Chair Rotner? Since there are none, we'll move on to Standing Subcommittee on Climate Action. And with the agenda materials for this meeting, there were 2 reports from past Climate Action Subcommittee meetings, the 11th December meeting and the 8th January meeting. And generally, because that meeting is less than a week before this meeting, I can't get the report written in time to have it sent out. But this time there were 2 weeks between the subcommittee meeting and this meeting. I managed to get it written and included in the packet. So there's newer information for you there. I won't go into the December meeting because I talked a bit about it at the December commission meeting, but in January, one significant thing was that Sustainability Specialist Wheeler gave a presentation about vehicle idling and idling reduction. This came from a request in a past commission meeting to discuss motor vehicle use in city events, particularly special functions. And we thought that a general discussion of idling would be useful, and it was. And so the subcommittee members agreed to have Specialist Wheeler repeat that presentation at the February commission meeting. And it was suggested also that a lot of the information in that presentation could be used during Earth Month or Earth Semester. Some public service announcements about idling, how long it's okay to leave your car idling, or when you should shut it off and so forth. And that's something that we can talk about in the future. So that was quite useful. And we did propose changing the meeting time to 2 p.m. Still on the second Wednesday of the month. We'll vote on it to make that final at the February 12th meeting, which actually is going to also be at 2 p.m. But we'll vote to make that official if the commission subcommittee members agree. And I'd also like to point out that there were 2 open positions on the subcommittee. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Commissioner Barrett.
Yes, on Christian's investigation, there is nothing about older vehicles, it's only about idling and things like that. Did you come across?
Not in my research, which is more about general idling, what people are doing.
Right.
Just kind of different, places are doing more kind of blanket, not even considering whether they're old or not, just blanket, measures for idle free zones.
Yeah, okay, I'm just curious, it's a concern, but I don't know how to address it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, then we'll move on to the ad hoc subcommittee on bird strikes. Commissioner Frick.
We have a live document that's being finalized right now, and we should have that for the commission in the next couple of weeks. So we'll get that out then.
Thank you. Questions? The next is the ad hoc subcommittee on leaf blowers. And after the last meeting, Commissioners Cohn and Frick and I talked a bit about next steps. One of the things that had been done following a meeting that we had with staff was to plan to write an article or Valley Voice for the Desert Sun, just reinforcing the fact that there is a ban on gas powered leaf blowers and offering some suggestions about what people might do and encouraging them to encourage their landscapers not to use them. We had intended to, or I had intended to convene the subcommittee between then and now, but a few other things came up. So we'll be meeting, finding time to meet, hopefully between now and the next meeting. We'll have something to report. And finally, there's an ad hoc subcommittee on Measure J projects. Vice Chair Rotner.
Yeah, I need to regroup with everyone. I kind of dropped the ball on this. I apologize. And we're set up a meeting time. Commissioner Alexander is out, so when he gets back, schedule some time. The holidays coming through things on.
Thank you. So now,
I'm sorry. Can I just add one thing back to the waste reduction? We also moved the meeting time for 1 o'clock, same day. And also we have a new member, which is Aaron Boyd. Commissioner Boyd, thank you for joining us. And thank you to Commissioner Walker, who's so busy with her new business, which is great. But thanks for all your efforts on being part of the commission as well.
and I should add that too for the subcommittee on waste reduction. Thank Commissioner Walker for her participation and support for the time that she was there. Good luck to you for your business. Okay. That concludes subcommittee reports. The next item is the director's report.
So since I had literally nothing to do with the preparation of this month's report, I'm actually going to kick it over to Christian, who's going to be the master of ceremonies for this month's staff report.
So not a super busy month, but a steady month. We had the shredding event the 11th, which went good. It was just shredding e-waste pickup. We've been kind of working on some things that we've been working on, so tree ordinance, the building's energy stuff, and then planning for the community cleanup. We've also added a few new things like the San Rafael turf conversion, so that'll get started, and we'll be doing outreach probably later this year, probably in the fall. And then updating the bike map, so it's another big one that we've been working on to add the new portion of the CV link thing. And then I don't know if you had any clues on stuff before you left.
Any comments or questions?
What that turf conversion is where again?
It's San Rafael. It's like
San Rafael and Sunrise.
in Sunrise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like a little strip along the south edge of one of the communities there, on the northwest corner.
Okay.
Sunrise Valley.
It's right across from the Four Seasons, it's like a patch of grass. And that there.
Oh, yes. Great. That's a rather large
It is.
patch of grass.
It is a
Yes.
large and mysterious grass.
Right.
No one knows why it's there.
Right.
So we're getting rid of it. So, yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
So why are we doing it? Why
It
is it up?
is city-owned property.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's city-owned property. It's kind of a strange distinction or type of property where we sort of manage it on behalf of the community. We have a number of places in the
Okay.
city where we manage a certain strip of landscape that's adjacent to the right of way, kind of on behalf of a community, but it is city-owned property. So it's it's a piece of grass. It's not a park. It's not really anything else. So we actually got some Measure J funding a couple years ago, to do this project. So Richard has been leading on that with Public Works to convert that grass.
Great.
okay.
and it should be noted that it's often overwatered and there are rivers running down the street.
Good to know. I know, we have not ourselves observed this condition, but I wouldn't be surprised, so.
I can tell you almost every day.
Ah, interesting, okay. We just managed to go at the wrong time, yes.
Interesting.
So there's like a hole for some reason, it's really serious, but.
It is a hole.
Yeah, it's like a weird depression. Would be, yes, we have. the question.
So is something going to be planted there?
Yes, so Desertscape,
Uh-huh.
and then we'll be doing community outreach once we kind of conceptualize what can and can be done within the budget.
Great.
Yeah, it's really funny. It's got all of the characteristics of like a really goofy city property. There's a sidewalk / driveway to nowhere. There's a gate to nowhere. There's a road that there's like grass that used to be road. It's really incredible, honestly. It's a fun project. So, but Christian has been working on that. So we'll have more updates to come on that in the future.
That's cool.
Also just wanted to highlight one other event coming up in the community. So we will not be at the health run this year because it's at the same time as our community cleanup. So Ben and I will be out at the community cleanup this weekend, but there is the annual Palm Springs like health 5K run. They're also having a bike route this year. And they do a lot of outreach on biking and walking, and it tends to be a good convening for people who are interested in this kind of thing. So would also recommend after you're done with the cleanup, go check out the health run this weekend.
Do we have to do community cleanup after the run?
That's a good question. If you are running first thing in the morning, you probably could come to the community cleanup.
I'm asking like because of the
Oh,
running event, there
so
might be.
I see what you're saying. You know, generally speaking, my experience with that event is that it's pretty cleaned up. It's not a very long route. We've had a table the past 2 years and I live in that area and I haven't ever noticed. It's not like some of the other events where we kind of go like, ooh, there's a lot of, you know, paper water cups. They do a pretty good job. They're pretty sustainability minded in terms of cleaning up themselves, but good flag. Sorry for missing your point there first. Yes.
Is that organized by Parks and Recreation?
It is not. So it used to be a city sponsored event. Jeff Hawker, who is a local event organizer and producer, has put it on for a number of years. So it's a privately organized event, but civically oriented with a lot of community organizations. I want to say the Desert Healthcare District is another major sponsor.
Yeah.
As well because of the health focus, but it was actually born out of this office when it started many years ago.
Yes.
But this office used to have a very explicit public health focus, which now is an important component of our work, but isn't kind of a headline anymore.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions or comments on the staff report? Director's report?
It's a staff question, not a staff report question. Okay, there is this, I had actually slipped my brain about signs around town that are, that say sustainability and are sort of decayed and whatever else, and
Yes.
so you know this question. It can,
Well, I know about the signs. What's the
oh,
question?
okay, no, I took a picture of one and it looks really terrible, and it's like, it's a bad.
Yes, we'll work with parks to get those removed. If there are any, I know there are a couple in Ruth Hardy Park.
Yeah,
If there are
yeah.
any in any other locations that people find, please let us know because we don't know where they all are. These are very old signs that in some cases have like QR codes for fitness circuits or a
Right.
number of different things. So if the information on the QR code is still valid, we're replacing the sign. In some cases, the platform that it was linked to is like no longer available or isn't relevant anymore. So we'll remove those
Okay.
if that's the the case.
Right.
Yeah, if anybody
Sounds
finds
good.
anything that looks bad, that's not in Ruth Ready Park, because we know about those, but we don't know about any other ones, so please let us know.
Thank you. And moving right along to old business, the item that we have there this evening is tree ordinance by Specialist Wheeler. We heard about it about a year ago, I believe, and this evening, the intent is just to have an information briefing. But next month, we'll have it in the agenda, a recommendation to move it forward with a potential first reading by the council in March. So there's a lot of information that was sent out with the meeting materials, so we'll turn it over to Specialist Wheeler.
You should have sharing.
So I'm actually going to start with a kind of debrief from the conference that I went for urban forestry in Chicago back in November. I was there for a week, so it's with the Arbor Day Foundation. They do a partners in community forestry, so it's all kind of people that work in the urban forestry field and meet and talk about what's going on. So just quick facts, I learned that there's 4.1 million trees in the city of Chicago, and they manage 520,000 street trees, which are a lot of trees.
Yeah.
So they talked a lot about thinking strategically about trees in the urban environment. They talked a lot about this kind of concept of nature deficit disorder. It's the idea that human beings are spending less time outside, and it's kind of negatively impacting our behavior, especially with younger kids. So it's kind of a big theme around the conference. So the main things we talked about with thinking strategically about trees is tree equity. So the basic one that we know about is distributional. So, how many trees are in the north end versus the south end. That's kind of strictly how we think about that stuff. But they talk about adding other layers like historical context. So like if there's any redlining, any income disparities, any things like that. And then the third type of equity is procedural. So making sure that everybody gets, kind of a seat at the policy making, where would they like to see trees? Like what's their routes to get to from point A to point B, things like that. So having, a space in the decision making. And then the other thing was thinking of trees as city infrastructure. So oftentimes it's not explicitly thought of that, but it is the only city infrastructure that does not depreciate over time. So trees gain value as they get older, they sequester more carbon, they're, worth more habitat and, higher price tag for a larger tree. And then also think of trees as countywide and regional assets, not thinking just in your own smaller community, but thinking as a, why, if a pest is affecting a tree, in the other cities, it's likely to come here as well, so thinking about it like that. So planning for urban forestry. So a lot of things that people are doing now, urban forest management plans, that's what a lot of other cities and entities and counties are doing. They're kind of overlaying it with their urban heat indexes, everywhere's getting hotter. Looking at that, they're looking at pedestrian routes, so maybe it's more cost effective to plant near a sidewalk than it is, in the middle of the park. They're looking at kind of what's the best use of their money. Flood risk map, seeing like how tree planting lines up with flooding. For Chicago, they said that their street trees divert 31% of their stormwater, so it is a good, kind of flood mitigator. And then also doing routine pruning plans that are more spread out, so like every 3 to 5 years to kind of do a grid style. And then the other things that other municipalities are looking at are inventory, so 3-tiered styled. So usually we focus on tier 1, which is just where was there a tree, where can we plant a tree now? Tier 2 is kind of like how can we change, when we have to do a little bit of depaving, add some soil here. And then tier 3 is thinking about like really redesigning the streets so we can't add trees. So thinking for instance for LA, even if they wanted to get to their tree goals, they can't because there's too much concrete. So they have to think about redesigning the streets. And then a lot of entity, they're also doing technical manuals and best practices and recommended species lists. So this is like a little diagram of, looking at trees along a walkway. Typically, we kind of plant in the style, toward the left over there, kind of like in a row, but that's like you're mitigating the least amount of heat. And so really you kind of want to look at this grove style. That's kind of where you get this cool blue color and it has the most cooling effect around the walkway. That was kind of like a design lab company that kind of looked at this. And this is like a visual of the different tiers. So like you would plant a tree, tier 1 is like kind of where there's already soil available. You don't really have to do much, you have to put a tree in. Might have been a tree there before, maybe not. Tier 2, they might have to take out some pavement, maybe add some soil. They can usually do it within the constraints of what's, already allowed. And then tier 3 is like really redesigning, there weren't trees there before, there wasn't soil. The street's not really made for that, but you really want to get that canopy in there. It's also the more costly effective or costly route, but I mean, you can add more trees that way. And this is kind of like one of the different ones they worked with UCLA, I think, for this neighborhood to kind of get a couple diagrams so you can kind of see with the tier 1, you could literally maybe only put a tree there, but there's already one. But with the tier 2, you kind of redesign the whole area to be able to add that. So really cities are trying to think, creatively about how they can do that now with, how we kind of set up the roads the way we have to this point. And then another thing I thought interesting, when they wanted to expand their tree canopy, they looked at where people go. What are their walking routes? So the reds are the streets that people avoid. So it might not be really an incentive for them to plant any more trees there because people just don't want to walk there in general. Or maybe safety reasons or other reasons, there's nothing to go to. The green are where people say that they routinely go. Those are their walking paths and they're kind of looking at their canopy along those routes and where they can really add to those routes. So implementation, what people are doing now, what does it mean to implement a urban forestry program? So a lot of people already had, tree ordinances, different things like that. They're updating them now to be more, current with the shading requirements, different things like that. Recommended species list. A lot of people are doing permitting for maintenance and removal. So seeing what's been taken out, making sure we're not just taking stuff out for fun. Looking at that, redesigning streets, activating potential planting spots, and then also there's a lot of education outreach. I met a lot of people that's their whole job is tree giveaway programs, tree education program, conservation outreach, things like that. And these are some other programs that I saw that the city of Chicago, they have tree ambassadors that actually go out and look for spots where the city can go and plant the tree. They take pictures, do things like that. Everyone's doing tree giveaways. That's a kind of no-brainer everywhere. And then the city of Charlotte, they have a home repair and a tree maintenance program, which I thought was interesting. So helping people kind of take care of trees that might be ready to just one day during a storm fall on a house, or if it has damaged the house, helping them, take care of the infrastructure and things like that. So, yep, that was the end of that. So I just wanted to give you guys a little update of what I learned as urban forestry program and all that stuff. So with the ordinance, the sheet that I gave you guys is kind of like a 1-pager that will hopefully, kind of stand with the ordinance when it's published. So really it's kind of to give an idea of what is going in the ordinance. Really, we're kind of limiting and kind of having some standards for removal processes. So right now as it stands, we recommend that people, if they take out a tree, that they, replace it like for like, but that's not like in stone. As long as they're meeting their ground cover requirements as part of planning, they don't necessarily have to. But this is something that we wouldn't want people to, replace trees. And then if they're over a certain size, which we put 12 inches or greater, they would have to do a 2-for-1 ratio. So that's kind of like the bigger changes. And any kind of landscape alteration already goes through planning, so this wouldn't be a new process for them. And then attached with this, which I didn't attach, I just sent some examples because we're still getting a proposal from West Coast Arborist. Is recommended species list that we're looking to go along with this ordinance. Really so that we have a kind of set what's good for our climate, things that, you know, aren't as prone to pests that weren't before, but maybe are now. What's good maybe under utilities, different things like that. And then in addition to that, a technical manual, which I sent you kind of two different versions. One's a bit more kind of dry, and the other one's a bit more artistic, but those are what we're looking at. West Coast Arborist is working on a proposal for both of those, and we've met internally with staff, like as a whole, and now we're meeting kind of more with individual departments to basically flesh out what their procedures are going to be for, you know, when someone says, hey, I wanted to remove this tree, or let's say someone already did remove the tree, what the, you know, kind of procedure is going to be. Do we have any questions about any documents, anything you read there?
Any questions?
I have. So once this ordinance is in place or when it gets out, how are we gonna approach the local nurseries that, not the big box stores? I don't know whether we have any jurisdiction or say for the big box stores, but for the local nurseries, how are we gonna educate them that, hey, we have this ordinance and we want you to know that when you're selling a tree, you have so much responsibility to help them to understand what are the ordinances locally.
I mean, I don't know if we've had anything similar with the.
I would say we would welcome involvement and feedback from commissioners on the best nurseries to reach out to and how you recommend us work, or how you recommend we work with them. I think our relationships are deepest like internally with cities, like with, property owners, different kinds of maintenance departments, internally with our staff, and then, and of course, doing some outreach to some of the landscaping companies. So anywhere where commissioners have relationships or suggestions of where we should go, we will gladly do that. I agree that that's a great conduit for making sure that our educational material gets out there.
In addition to local nurseries, I think a lot of people just are homeowners or HOAs work through their landscapers or gardeners. And they just say, take this tree out, or I want this tree put in here. Now they may have the expertise to do what they need to do, but they also may rely on the nurseries that they work with as well. So that's something else to keep in mind.
Yeah, so making sure we're mapping that nursery network, both in terms of the local places where individuals or local groups might go, and then maybe some of the regional nurseries, even if they're not the big box store, but they may be a different, just in like a different area or something, to make sure we're mapping that network and we can get that information out.
I just thinking about ways to share information is doing like an earth. I think sharing with community is important. It's once they have the knowledge, like a list. I was looking through the information that you added to the packet, and there's a lot of great information there. Oh, this is a good tree to plant because I have an area that I'm trying to plant. So sharing with community members, I think it might be a good additional Earth Month kind of for both community and, so I think if residents know, they may be more likely to push the people that are selling to supply stuff. Yeah.
Do we have any other follow-ups? Oh, we have two news, so I think I saw the same. You had a follow-up? Okay, we'll do the same here first, and then I saw Barrett, and then.
I think the 1PS picnic might be a good place to talk about the tree situation.
Sure.
And because you have a lot of really good material, and it says exactly in those charts whether it's a good place to a good tree to actually plant in this environment. So
That's a
it might
good version.
be something to add to your thoughts for the booth.
Sure, yeah, cool. We love having a theme for the booth, so that should be this year. Okay, we'll go here next. Oh, wait, sorry, we had one more follow-up. Okay.
Just one quick comment on the nurseries. I've planted a lot of trees here. And a lot of the trees come from Temecula nurseries, and nurseries here will buy them from there, and then they die because they weren't brought up in this environment. So like there's nurseries that are here that will grow trees from seedlings and they're already adapted to this climate. So that's one thing to think about when purchasing trees and planting them.
This thing first.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, I'm no expert on nurseries, but there are a couple in, I think it's Palm Desert, or it might be La Quinta, that are very well known for, materials that survive in the desert. I can't think of the names of them, I can find them on a map.
And then did you have your new question?
Sure.
Okay, go for it. We'll go to Commissioner.
My new question is, there are on the next agenda item, the Measure J items we're reviewing, there's a lot of trees. And do any of those tree projects, and the city's gonna fund them with city funding, do they become applicable for where we're going? Did that question make sense?
Yes, I haven't looked at the specific project, so
Well, the Prescott Preserve
Okay.
and the Tapas Creek in particular, and then there's some others.
I think Scott would preserve, but theoretically, it depends on their relationship with the planning. Review process, so I don't know if they have like a landscape plan or.
Yeah, I mean, technically speaking, all of these, like any large property has to go through sort of like the landscape approval process. It kind of depends on the timing of when it's going in as to whether it would be subject to the tree ordinance. I mean, I would imagine any of those projects, they wouldn't have to do anything differently as a result of this.
Mhm.
Unless they were really planning to plant like a bunch of trees that didn't make sense for this climate, which I don't think either of those projects are likely to do. Where I think the ordinance really comes into play is particularly if they're thinking about maybe removing a tree to make space for a different tree, or removing trees to do some kind of different upgrade or something like that. So I think we would hope to just continue to see more projects like those projects. I don't know that this ordinance would impact them in any particular way. Did that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
which then brings me to another thought, which is that in any way, if these
Mhm.
project could be used to enhance understanding of the importance of tree selection and what it works, and someone say, if they could be, since they're getting Measure J funding, can we
Sure,
buy
like
them
a
to be,
flagship
can we
project or
buy them to become promoters?
Interesting.
So-
We would have to follow up with the individual projects, but I would imagine based on the presentations that we received at this commission, I would imagine there would be interest in kind of showcasing best tree practice. So something we can follow up.
Just to keep things carried.
Yeah, totally. All connected. Okay, Commissioner. Sorry, Commissioner, was there anything else you wanted to add?
I don't know if this is an appropriate question. I was just curious about the 2-for-1 replacement. How? I mean, I'm just curious from just an actual sort of perspective in terms of, I don't know anything about landscaping or gardening, but if you have one tree, do you always necessarily have room for two? And what if you don't? And if you also, are there concerns then with root systems and depending on the type of tree?
Yes, so that is in the ordinance that, you know, if there is an adequate space, we are trying to work out a different, you know, route. If you do not have adequate space, or if it just doesn't make sense for two trees where there once was, it's just, you know, when you have a larger tree, you're losing a lot of value, like habitat value, kind of even just shade value. And so, you know, it took however long, 20 years for that tree to get where it was, so we kind of wanna find the best way to replace it, yeah.
So that replacement ratio is pretty common across cities with tree ordinances, but most of them would have a provision, like say, for example, you have like one tree strip that's like next to a sidewalk, right? Like, you know, like you were saying, the root system, there may just not be room
Yeah.
for multiple, or maybe an HOA has trees in an improper place currently, and they wanna relocate those trees, or, you know, plant trees somewhere else because they're dealing with sidewalk cracks or foundation issues or a number of different things. So that's also, I think, part of why the idea is that this would go through sort of like the existing planning department landscape process, where they have a little bit of additional expertise where they can say like, yes, we agree with you that there doesn't appear to be room for an additional tree, but really trying to make sure that we're replacing those ecosystems as much as we can. But yeah, we definitely don't wanna be having unhealthy trees because we're just kind of shoving them where they shouldn't be. Fair question. Yes.
It's not necessarily trees, but plants as well, but, since there were several plants, there were lots of plants in the
Yeah.
materials that you sent to us. A while ago, long while ago, probably. I did a lot of educational experience of out at the Living Desert. Because they have master gardener programs, and they have specific things. Was when I first moved here full time, I wanted to figure out what I could grow in my own yard. So it was very helpful. They have classes that maybe go about 5 or 6 weeks. And, once a week, and that way you can learn what works and what doesn't work in this environment. And might need a friend.
We'll make sure to add that to the list.
Okay, yeah.
I think I have a list. I think the last Compass neighborhood meeting is also happening on March 15th. I'm not sure about the dates. That can be also a good place to go and advocate for this. My second thing is, I really love that long list, like what are the trees, whether they are native to our region or native to California. I think we should really emphasize on native for us, our region, because we're in desert climate, on top of the list and in bold letters. Because everywhere we see, they are either non-native to California, not even to our region, and they live the payments, sidewalks, everything. If we can differentiate, like there are some trees in case of the fire, they burn longer because of their essential oil contents and everything. So that can be a small distinction that we can put, like nobody want to plant 100 eucalyptus. And they do that. They just want to plant eucalyptus because they grow bigger. And I'm like, yeah, but it has consequences. Next thing is, what is the other thing? For our community is good for real estate buying and selling. So it's easier for a person to purchase a home and renovate it and pull out all the trees they have and plant a fresh batch. So is there any way we can advocate for them as well, like for the real estate company saying, hey, we have this new tree ordinances. If you are doing any renovation work, landscape changes, it's gonna come to us anyway, but we just wanna make sure you don't spend your money first and then you have to change them. Third, last one, landscapers. We go around our trees were butchered. They say it's spring cleaning, let's butcher the top of the tree. We don't care. They look like fingers from a scary movie. Can we provide some kind of arborist training, a bit pruning training for this landscaper, so they don't butcher our trees? And can that be connected to grass removal incentive, where if a homeowner is removing grass and they're getting an incentive, if we're still doing it, can we add them, hey, if you plant a tree of this variety from this specific list, we will provide you a little bit more.
Yeah, we're definitely brainstorming some turf conversion, tree kind of ideas.
Yeah, I think thinking about how we, like what leverage mechanisms we have to incentivize proper maintenance practice is interesting, because so many of those things are really, like they're possible to legislate, but also difficult to chase. So I think thinking about some of those different tie-ins is kind of where our heads are at, and we have to, when we bring this back for probably we'll have maybe 1 or 2 additional things that we'll bring. But that's a great suggestion of kind of making that linkage as well, so please feel free to keep those ideas coming. But I think, yeah, the technical manuals and stuff that Christian sent around will cover things like burning standards, and some things in there will be more recommendations than necessarily requirements. Because certain things, again, we may or may not have the power to enforce at this particular moment. But I think kind of to some of the points that other commissioners have raised, sometimes just knowing the best practice and having it accessible can make, in some cases, I often estimate 20 to 30% of the difference. Literally just made that number up, but based on the work that I've done in the past, like sometimes just telling somebody like solves that first piece of the problem.
Any other comments or questions? This one. It's like, Question for Specialist Wheeler. This summary page that you sent us then, this basically is the contents of the ordinance that we'll see next month. And I know we've seen it in the past. I don't remember all the details on it.
Yes, for the most part, there is like, so in the actual ordinance itself, there will be different criteria for like removal, so there will be a section that says like, you won't have to. Replace if, the site isn't suitable or things like that, or it obstructs view, at intersections. So it will, I guess, be a little bit more detailed. This is kind of like the high level version of it. So yeah, for certain scenarios.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good discussion. And we'll be continuing in February. And finally, there's one item under new business. And this is something that came up actually at the end of December, a couple of weeks after we had our last commission meeting. This is something that came up in December, at the end of December, after our last commission meeting. So I'd like to make a few comments on it before we have a discussion. Could you go to the memo that was sent out? Is that?
Are you able to share your screen to people?
Yes.
Well, he's already connected to his own.
The ranking list.
Yeah, it's the file with the ranking list, but the first page is a memo to the commissioners. Can't find it, I guess I could talk.
That's okay,
It's not opening.
Oh, it's not. Then maybe if you want to begin speaking, I will
Okay.
pull it up while you do that.
Okay. Let's see. As I mentioned, it was at the end of December that a request came from the chair of the Measure J subcommittee, Measure J commission, to have sustainability review and rank the sustainability related proposals that they had received for their 2024 or 25 community projects. And they had actually received a total of 52. But in talking to the chair, it appeared that about 12 were specifically related to sustainability. And the request at the time was that we make a recommendation by January 20th, which was yesterday. So we did pull together a subcommittee, an ad hoc subcommittee to review the list of projects and to rank them. And that was Commissioner Cohn and Vice Chair Rotner. We had received, I sent out the project descriptions to them ahead of time, and we met a couple of weeks ago and had a discussion about how to rank them. And we have the results, which we'll go through in more detail. I wanted to remind you that the Sustainability Commission had previously heard presentations relating to 3 of the projects: the Center Solar Shade Structure and Bike Racks, Prescott Preserve Urban Forest, and Tockwitz Creek Master Plan. And we recommended that they be accepted, and we had letters sent to the Measure J Commission at that time. Now, these 3 were part of a larger list that we were looking at and making recommendations on. We don't know how Measure J will incorporate our recommendations into their process, but the intent is to take a vote this evening to accept the recommendations. The list was sent out to you last week, and hopefully all the commissioners have read them. And I'd like to go through a couple of them just to give examples of how we did the ranking. And so if you can pull that up a bit.
Yeah.
There are 2 pages to the table, and the ranking is in the left column. You see that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the ranking is in the left column. The project name and the number in terms of their list on this Measure J commissions list is also in that next column. This is project. What we did is we actually started by grouping types of projects. There were a couple with solar panels, there were 3 with sidewalks and so forth. That made our discussion easier. But what we really focused on is what are these projects addressing? Are they things that we talk about in our commission on a regular basis? Are they things that we talk about in our subcommittees? You know, are these important things to sustainability? And that's what the column that says sustainability principles is about. Basically, saying what we were referring to when we were evaluating the particular projects. And finally, the right column is the impacts of the project on our community. And for example, let's just look at the first one, the Mizell Center solar canopies. They were proposing to put in canopies in the parking lot with solar panels, and they would also have batteries. There was another project that basically that had solar panels as well, and that was the project number 5, the Palm Springs Women's Club solar installation. So in order to rank and differentiate those of the same type, we looked at the impacts of the project on the community. And as it says there, Mizell Center offers a broad array of programs and services to the community. It serves as a cooling center during emergencies. Users of the adjacent park and swim center would benefit by the shade provided. So there are a lot of things that are covered by that project, and the Mizell Center has a big impact on the city. Whereas the other one, the Women's Club, they wanted to put in solar panels. They didn't mention batteries, but the impact of the Women's Club on Palm Springs really wasn't well known to our subcommittee. And we felt that it was probably had less impact to the community than Mizell Center. And that's why Mizell Center ranked higher than the Women's Club. And another example was sidewalks. There were three projects for sidewalks. One of them was on Ramon Road, one was on East Vista Chino, and one was on Palm Canyon. And what we looked at is, we recognize that sidewalks are important. They provide places for people to walk safely, get exercise. They reduce GHG emissions by having people walk rather than drive in certain places. And one of them on Ramon Road was near a proposed, was near a major hiking trail. And there was one long block where it's just a vacant lot and no sidewalk. And that impeded walking from further east to the hiking trail. So we felt that, as an example, would have more impact on the community. The one on East Vista Chino would connect businesses with a residential area. They were actually far apart and there weren't a lot of businesses involved. So we felt that would rank lower on the side for as a sidewalk project than the one on Ramon Road. And then the one on Palm Canyon, basically there was already a pavement. It's just a mixture of concrete and pavers, and the project was to make it uniform with all pavers. And so we felt that had less impact on the city than the one on Ramon Road. So that's kind of the thinking that we went through and how we ranked the projects. And so the sustainability principles are repeated for similar projects. Then there's a column with the impacts on the community. And we felt that even though we didn't know how the Measure J subcommittee the commission was going to review or evaluate 52 projects, providing this information would help them evaluate the importance to the Sustainability Commission. So we present this to you this evening for review and a vote. And since they asked for it yesterday, if we do approve it, we'll arrange to have it sent to the staff and the chair on as soon as possible. Before we open up to discussion, I'd like to ask Commissioner Coleman, Vice Chair Rotner, do you have anything to add to the discussion? Or to my discussion, my presentation?
Right, I just wanted to share that apparently the Parks and Recreation Commission initiated this on their own and submitted their proposal without being asked to, for example, but they the Measure J members found it very helpful in order, to have recommendations from people who actually knew what they were talking about and understood, maybe the importance more generally than or more specifically than the general public would, or members of their own commission. So that was then when the chair of the Measure J reached out to us to give us that opportunity.
And that's a good point. Perhaps in hindsight, we should have done it earlier, and in the future, we can do it sooner, but we've done it. Commissioner Rodden?
Yeah, I think we took a long time kind of ranking these, because I think generally we think they're all good projects, and if we had $1 trillion, we'd get them all done. So it's not saying that there are no's, it's how do you prioritize them with the sustainability roadmaps and all our information that this department has, and how to rank them. And it was truly the highest impact that we felt to the most number of people within our community. So low, all types of community members. So it was kind of hard because everybody's like, well, I like this one better. It's like, how do you sit down and start ranking it? So we didn't go about it lightly, for sure. We spent quite a bit of time on this. So hopefully it was worth it.
Thank you. So now I'd like to open the discussion, and I think it would be appropriate just to have a motion to accept a second, and then open to discussion about that, and then take a vote. Is that appropriate?
Sure.
Okay.
So the motion to accept this as a product to discuss,
Accept the recommendations as presented.
we'll do,
To go forward to the Measure J.
And forward to the Measure J.
do people have, I would imagine there might be discussion or questions before we accept the recommendation, but that's kind of up to you all.
We'll need to make a motion and have a second, and have as much discussion as necessary, and then take a vote.
Oh, okay, got it. So the motion and then discuss, okay,
Right.
sure, that's fine.
I guess it wasn't clear on that.
Okay, yeah, I was just like, well, but then when are people gonna ask the question? Yes, okay.
So is there a motion to accept the recommendations as presented and forward them to the Measure J Commission?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Okay, what,
The parliamentary procedure is throwing me off.
What questions do folks have about the material? Okay, we'll go to you first.
So I appreciate the work that you did on it, which I know it's probably not a very easy challenge. And so it's probably took you a lot of time, and I know you all probably put a lot of thought into it, so thank you. The question I have is, when you were thinking about impacts, did you consider the actual size of the project? It just that sort of came to mind with when you talked about the women's club and the Mizell, is if I'm thinking about greenhouse gas emissions, was the women's project, did you consider that it was smaller or bigger than maybe the solar project?
The one thing that we did actually avoid discussing was the cost.
So not so much the cost,
Right,
but the megawatt or
Right.
kilowatt
And
size.
actually, that's a good point. We didn't from that point of view, and that would be related indirectly or directly to greenhouse gas emissions reduction and so forth. But the reason I mentioned cost was that we felt we don't know what the total budget is. We felt that that's something that, you know, the Measure J Commission would evaluate as far as their overall evaluation. So, and the cost is somewhat related to the size of the project.
Was the size of the project, sorry for the clarification, just because I've seen some of these applications and I know the form itself was intentionally low lift. Was the size of the project available to you in some of these cases, or was it universally available for you to be able to make that comparison?
It varied, so I don't know that we could match Apple. I could see what you're doing, which could have been, I don't think we could have done that based on the applications, because it is pretty light. But that would have been a helpful, a priority potentially.
They ranged from more than $1 million to, it was something in the. in
No,
the-
and
in the
I
25,000 or
It's just
something
sometimes you
like that.
can't always,
Yeah.
a budget won't necessarily translate to a
Right.
kilowatt.
Right.
megawatt.
Yeah.
So that's why I was asking.
I think this gives us a really good list for the sustainability department. Let's say Measure J funded some of these projects and some of them did not get any kind of funding. I think is there any way sustainability commission or the sustainability department can say, okay, let's see how can we collaborate with these projects and figure out if we have the grants or can we get the grants to move the needle on these projects or from this 12 list.
It's hard for me to commit to anything on the spot. Theoretically, yes. I can see a number of different places where we could support any projects that wouldn't be Measure J funded. One of which could be helping support the project for a future Measure J funding cycle. Another could be if there is a grant opportunity that we see, you know, these projects are probably more shovel ready than, you know, another random project we could think of. So working with the partners to do that. In some cases, potentially incorporating some elements into other like citywide strategies that we do. I do try to keep us from owning a bunch of specific projects because our department is more set up to like plug into everybody else's stuff. We don't necessarily build sidewalks on our own, for example. But we could work with other departments to say like, hey, we have a lot of community interest in this location. You know, how does that show up in the pedestrian master plan? You know, we may also though have conflicting priorities where the city has an existing ranking for certain types of projects that we would prioritize. So again, that's kind of why I'm like, I'm hesitant to commit to anything. in
no,
particular, but I
yeah.
see your point as like, here's a great list of shovel-ready projects with community partners. Let's figure out how to help keep those alive.
Yeah, I think the main thing I'm looking for is like, how can we plug these into other departments
Sure.
and say, hey, these are ready, how can we include this in your projects?
Right, and I can see that also being, I think the area where that would seem most obvious to me is if we find grant opportunities where, like for community and city partnerships, where we see a lot of those, but sometimes we don't necessarily know what projects are the top priority for the community partners, so this is a really good list of, here's 10 that we know are priorities for some of our community partners. I see a lot of motion. Do you have a new or a saying? You have a saying here, so we'll go to you first.
Yeah, sorry, just kind of tying that into the subcommittee that we haven't really kicked off yet. That could potentially become a discussion
Yeah.
point later on.
Saying here, did you have a saying or a new?
I don't know whether it's same or new. Because I'm-
Next time you gotta use your sticky.
Because I'm having trouble following some things on this.
Yeah, no worries.
Can I just
Go ahead.
speak?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, I think there's reason to do this and it works and that sort of thing. But it's also difficult because, you know, I'm looking at these and say, I know that area and they're like, okay, where are they actually going to put that? And all these other sorts of things. And I've seen some Measure J proposals and sometimes they don't provide that much detail. I mean, you know, I don't know if Mizell is going to put shade structures over that entire parking lot or is it just the area right near Mizell, for example, those sorts of things. It would almost seem that we might want to have, I'm not suggesting we change anything at this point because because the time demands. But that we could rank on, oh, well, this really fits with sustainability. Oh, no, this doesn't really fit very well, you know, and have some that don't really fit. And we say maybe do the top 5 or the top, you know, 8 or something like that, rather than ranking the whole thing. Because
That's what they asked. That's what they
They
asked.
charged us.
They
to
asked,
do
that
that.
was
what
their,
that
that
was their
was their
request.
specific ask, okay,
Yeah.
all right, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
I mean, because some of them think, yeah, it's not a big deal, or, you know. But then I would need more information to make those decisions.
Yeah.
So, okay, now that, I guess that was my initial question is, are we just voting on the ranking? Now I know why we're doing the ranking, because they asked us, right, okay.
Okay, oh, wait, sorry, we had a Fred another same over there, I think first, sorry, my bad. Was that a same or a new that you
It's
had?
the same.
Okay,
I-
sorry, my bad.
I wanted to follow up
And then
on
yours.
Vice Chair Rotner's comment about the ad hoc subcommittee of this commission to look at Measure J projects. After we went through the process, I thought that that was a good learning experience for helping to develop new projects in that subcommittee because of the way we identified criteria and the priorities that we're working on, and the scope of some of the projects may be good guidelines as well. So I think that this exercise was useful in going forward with that subcommittee.
Sort of a variation of what I was suggesting.
And following up on Commissioner Barrett's comment, I think that there are things that we didn't know. And we just had to make assumptions. We'd probably still be working on it if we had all the answers that we might have needed. But I think we made good, consistent assumptions, and that's how we came up with the ranking.
So this is a procedural question. I'm only asking because to Commissioner Barrett's point, I am slightly uncomfortable with the ranking. I certainly understand why you did it, and that's what we asked. Procedurally, could we have politely declined their request? Or is it
Would you prefer to?
Well,
Yeah.
I can answer that because
Yeah.
my original response was, this is the 11th hour. And we're not meeting again until January 21st. Maybe we can't do it. Maybe we shouldn't do it. But I had a long conversation with Vice Chair Rotner, and we actually worked out a timeline, working backwards from this meeting in terms of what we had to do in order to make a reasonable set of recommendations. And that timeline worked out well, and we met and we did it. And I think I have a high degree of confidence in the process that we followed. And again, not knowing how they're going to take into account our recommendations. They have other criteria. I don't know that they'll put 5 sustainability ones at the top or in the middle or spread them out. We don't know how they're going to do it. In fact, that's something that we could find out eventually. But I promote going forward with this.
All right, I've seen 3 sames here that were all surreptitiously raised to me, so I have to go in the order in which they were raised to me. So we've got Commissioner Barrett, then Commissioner Cohen, then Vice Chair Rotner.
Let me go back and let the other members of the committee speak first.
Okay, so you'd like to go back and,
Yeah.
okay, so then we'll go to Commissioner Cohen next.
We have no assurances that they're gonna pay any attention if they think they know more of how effectively they can make a decision on their own, they would change the order. So this is just what we think. It's not saying we're recommending so much. Yeah, but from our viewpoint, and that's what they were asking for, is this, they wanted to have one more viewpoint, but it's their decision. And, but they want to be sensitive and not contradictory to what sustainability would do if it were in charge of these projects, if that helps any.
Yeah, just tying into that, I think it's a good effort to get something moving that I think have talked about in this commission, is working with other commissions and being involved in what is actually going on and not hearing about it after. It's kind of very tail end, but I think the person that's running the Measure J commission is very thoughtful. I know that he's been involved in OnePS for a very long time. I'm not sure if he's still involved, but I think it's very community minded. I think the intent, whether or not they take the list and go, our recommendation for number one is not necessarily, they may pick the last one because we don't know what their guidelines are as well. So I think it's a good starting point. And we did talk about whether or not we should do it, but I just felt that this interaction with all these different departments need to be happening. So it's a good starting point. And I think we'll learn, whether it's good or bad, learn some lessons from this on how do you participate with Parks and Rec, with the Measure J, with, you know, other commissions that are involved doing stuff where sustainability can have a big impact on moving the needle forward in the right direction. So, I mean, this is a small thing, but in my mind, a lot of the, you know, the majority of these, hey, let's do it. If we have the money, let's do it. But they don't. So they're trying to prioritize stuff. So that's kind of how because we did, the three of us talk a lot. We spent a lot of time kind of talking about this because we all did have that concern. So anyway, just kind of validating what we did.
Okay, we're gonna go to Commissioner Barrett next, then Chair Clark, and then I might actually insert myself, and then we'll go back to Commissioner Boyd. I'll be really fast. I'm just gonna try to attempt to summarize a couple of points.
And Commissioner Cohen and Commissioner Rotner basically said what I was going to say. I think this is a good example of a good, that it's something well worth doing to have the commissions working together and departments and commissions to make these sorts of decisions. So I think it's well worth it. Hopefully we can know in the future so that we can develop a better way to get all the information necessary.
And I just like to underscore that point about working with other commissions. I think there's a lot more interest, even by council members that I've talked to seeing the commissions work more together. But also just to reemphasize the point that Commissioner or Vice Chair Rotner made about not knowing how they're going to make the decision. That's why we were very careful in explaining how we made the decisions by putting down what's important to our commission. What do we talk about monthly? And also, what are the impacts on the community? Feeling that information would help them understand our thought process and incorporate it into their thought process.
So I'm gonna briefly try to zoom out a little bit, and I apologize if it's inappropriate for me to answer myself in this discussion, but I'm sorry. It sounds to me, what I'm kind of hearing from everyone is that one of the kind of central debates that we're having here is how do we choose which choice is the most sustainable choice, and where do we put our dollars, and where do we put our action, and how do we kind of come to a consensus when so many things that we could do are more sustainable, and there's so many things that we have to do. How do we sort of make some kind of recommendation to anyone about anything of what we should do first? This is the crux of what keeps me up at night. There's like the gray stripe, it's like how does it comes from that. But I'm wondering if for future versions of this process, we really kind of zero in on the principles aspect here, which I think is a really good, like a principles-based framework, I think is really helpful for this type of adjudication. And particularly thinking about what is the best use of Measure J funding for climate-related projects. Because there are going to be some projects, I think we've talked about this in the past, some projects that are going to be better fits for this type of work than other type of projects will be. We kind of talk about,
Right.
Say who it is from Zoom?
Is updating itself maybe?
Okay, gotcha. Oh no, what did I say? So, we kind of in our team use like the egg charts that the team is really sick of, but they kind of help me in terms of like what is absolutely core sustainability work, what is like related, what is environmental quality work, and then what is like community environment work. So maybe we think about something for future versions that kind of looks at, because I know we have here things like, how do you do a comparison between the value of a native plant project and the value of a solar project, or even one solar project versus another? Some of those maybe you can make a sizing determination, kilowatt hours per dollar. Maybe a certain project is less likely to happen without this money. There's so many different ways you could do it. So I think maybe we think about lasering in on the principles-based approach for different kind of categories of project, and then we kind of think about sort of, because I think I heard somebody make the suggestion of, as opposed to maybe a 1 through 10 list, what about like an A tier list, a B tier list, a C tier? Yes, I was just like, it was over here, I think.
We talked about.
Yeah, and so I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of really great work to categorize these things, and I just wanted to sort of like zoom out, just like, I think the debate that we're, or the question that we're asking is fundamentally like, how do we determine which sustainability is more sustainable, I guess, I don't know, for lack of a less trite way to say it. So in terms of thinking about how the commission moves forward on this, I wonder if there might be sort of a way to separate out, like, what do we want to recommend specifically? Do we want to make a recommendation specifically now? And then are there pieces here that we might want to carry forward, or what might we want to add to a future version of that? And I think that would be a good thing to work on in the subcommittee that I know both of you are part of with Commissioner Alexander. That could be a good place to do that. So I don't know if that was helpful at all, but kind of just hearing where folks are centering around is like this key question of what is the most sustainable choice? How do we do the apples to apples comparison? Maybe for this, we kind of can't, but I think leaning on the principles might help us here. And then I think you were next, and then we have you, and then you.
Thanks, I think, I wanna sort of echo, I'm not. Pleased, I'm not, it was a very tough job, I'm not, it's definitely not a debate, I think. you
Not
know,
really a debate, I guess the question.
Yes, I think you did a great job, and you did, given what was asked, I love what you did, I love the way that you structured everything, I think it's great, so please don't, I just. I think it is more the sort of slight ranking that is a little uncomfortable. I love that we're being asked to work more closely, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to do that. And I would just sort of echo what I think everybody's saying is, sort of going forward, we sort of think about how do we engage sort of more proactively, so we're not at the last minute, and also kind of what would be a framework, for less than 30 days. This is amazing, and I love what you did. I think it's the ranking that just feels a little.
We talked a lot about that because it's tough.
Yeah, and I know that's not, you didn't decide that,
Yeah.
it was what you were asked to do. It's kind of one of those things where,
It's an important recommendation, so.
yeah, we're gonna have our name on this, and I would hate for,
Absolutely.
somebody to be like, why did you put me at number 12? And I know this is great, and so it's not,
Yeah, so, one thing is that we're not really recommending, we ranked it in our opinion. They will not be sharing this with the community in that. In my-
It's public.
Well,
Yeah,
I know it's
Anytime
here,
it
but.
comes up for voting.
But, yeah, but that's not Measure J's rating and ranking, and so other people will see this, of course, we have guests here tonight who are seeing it. But, I think this was the first time there have been, community generated activities that have been submitted, proposals have been submitted to Measure J. It used to be generated within the city and with the departments and that sort of thing. So it's a very new process, even for Measure J. And so they were struggling with these kinds of things that we're talking about, and just wanted some additional input from people that they thought knew more about it than they did. And I think that that's what we've sort of tried to wrangle with. But I think it's probably because it's a brand new process. They've never done this before. From the community, bringing the community in to initiate the proposals. They have a separate process for their traditional way of selecting projects through the city. So that's why it came in late, and I thought that might help a little bit to understand why it's was so late, and it was sort of an afterthought, but one that I think is good.
Mr. Walker.
I think if if we have some more time, I think the list will change eventually. But my recommendation is like, if something is coming like this in the future, I think like how you said, the ACT model. We need a data analyst, so they can prepare that form for us and send it to all the commissioners. So we can vote on that at home. For me, I want to participate in this, but coming to another ad hoc meeting or coming there, little hard, but if it's in the format of where every commissioner can go through it on their own time with the time limit, makes it easier for us to say, hey, we contributed to this. And with the data, I think it will be easier to say, okay, together, this is the list we made as the Sustainability Commission.
Yeah, that's something we can look into in the future. There's weird challenges around us, like sending things out for vote. We can do it, for like, because we have to make sure that anything that's being voted on is made public and publicly available with the public being able to also be part of that conversation. So there are ways we could do a different version of that process, but I think thinking, having this as a good baseline gives us more things.
I said, call the question.
Okay, are we ready to take a vote?
I just want to make one comment. I really want to thank Commissioner Cohen and Vice Chair Rodner for participating. We had a lot of back and forth discussion, and going in, we really didn't know what process we were going to follow in order to do the ranking. And we developed it as we went along. And I thought we did spend a lot of time, but I thought it was a very effective meeting with really good participation. So I guess we should go and take the vote now.
Sure. Do we want to do a roll call vote? Or would we prefer to?
I think you should probably do a roll.
Is anyone?
Well, no, I mean, you can see if it's
I
unanimous.
think a show of hands probably
Okay.
would be.
Sure. Okay, all in favor? Okay, all opposed? And any abstaining? Okay, so, with 6 yes, 0 no, 1 abstain, the motion passes.
And so the motion passes, and we will pass the information on to the Measure J Commission soon. But this was a very good discussion, and I think we learned something, and hopefully in the future we'll be involved at the earlier stages of such processes, and can benefit from the things that were brought up at the meeting this evening. So, thank you all. Okay. So the final item on the agenda is commissioner comments and February agenda items. We'll go around the table as normal with commissioner comments, and I have a couple of things to add with regard to the future agenda, which we'll also be talking about later this week. So Commissioner Walker, do you have any comments? I think you did mention that you wanted to report on a meeting that you attended.
So on the 15th, I attended UCR's climate conference, full day conference on climate action, how Riverside County is doing it collectively, and what role specifically UCR playing in it. Congratulations to us. They're building a hub just related to climate work, and all they want to do is like innovate technology or develop entrepreneurs more related to climate action. I think that will be a really good spot for us as a sustainability commission to see what they are doing, or do we want to have people from there come and do presentations for us, like different professors are working on different climate action projects. From the extension department, they are doing 2 classes called Bending the Curve. And another one is climate resiliency for communities. I think those 2 classes can be very good for us to see or take if we are interested. They will be like 10-week course. That is my comment from that conference, and it's really good to see what's going on at an academic level and technological innovations.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyd. Commissioner Barrett.
Nothing.
Commissioner Cohen.
Nothing.
Commissioner Frick.
Nothing for me.
Vice Chair Rodner. Okay. Great. Thank you all. I just wanted to mention that next month, we did talk about having an idling presentation from Specialist Wheeler on the agenda. And we also will be talking about both the foodware ordinance and the tree ordinance, and we'll be making recommendations about those with regard to going forward to this, to the city council. So those are things that are on the future agenda item list, but I just wanted to emphasize those. And we do have our agenda planning meeting with Vice Chair Rodner and myself and staff this Thursday, the 23rd, and I think we've changed the time to 11.
Did we? That's it, the same time, sorry. Well, it should work. We'll just have to, you won't have all of us, but you'll have some of us.
Okay,
You'll have enough of us.
okay. And you'll have enough of us.
The some of us.
Yeah.
So with that, I'd like to propose that the meeting be adjourned to February 18th, 2025 at 5 p.m., 5:30 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion, second? Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.